Hello, this is Eastern Europe Review, the joint production of BELSAT TV and TVP World, with reports and analysis from Belarus, Russia and Ukraine. I am Sergey and these are the stories. Vladimir Putin's first public Q&A session since the beginning of the invasion of Ukraine. What did he say?
Overall, it looked like a circus, and this is the main takeaway. Putin has nothing to say.
Russian conscript parents struggle to uncover the truth about their son's death in the army.
I believe that the most severe discredit to the army is the act of killing within its own ranks.
Cover-up of an unusual animal epidemic unfolding in Belarus.
Year by year, the number of cattle is decreasing. The main reason is cattle plague.
The direct line with Vladimir Putin on December 14 lasted more than 4 hours. The Russian president decided to answer questions from the audience for the first time in 2 years, marking the first occasion since the beginning of the full-scale war against Ukraine. Unsurprisingly, numerous questions came from individuals in military uniforms and military correspondents. However, the smooth flow of this so-called direct line was disrupted by unexpected questions displayed on the walls.
The first of Vladimir Putin's so-called direct lines after the start of a full-scale invasion of Ukraine turned out to be even less meaningful than one might have expected.
Everything that Vladimir Putin said was expected and predictable. Some things turned out to be so ridiculously predictable, he expressed them in the exact same words that my colleagues had anticipated. Overall, it looked like a circus, and this is the main takeaway. Putin has nothing to say. Putin is conducting his election campaign at absolute zero.
As expected, a significant part of the questions to Putin was dedicated to war and peace. The Russian ruler continues to assert that the objectives of the so-called special military operation remain unchanged: demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. According to him, the war will end once Russia achieves these goals.
The criterion for a well-defined goal is how measurable that goal is. Demilitarization and denazification are entirely abstract goals. It is not at all clear how they can be operationalized into real numbers. This is a crucial characteristic of these terms. It gives Putin the opportunity to prolong the war as much as he wants, because it is never clear whether the goal has been achieved or not. On the other hand, Putin can easily end the war at any moment convenient for him.
Many expected Putin to respond to the wives and mothers of the Russian mobilized sent to a senseless war against Ukraine. Russian women were anticipating the president's response to facilitate the return of their men back home, as they had not been released from the front for more than a year. However, Putin decided to avoid this topic, leading to anger.
The direct line with the president felt like a stab in the hearts of the wives and mothers of the mobilized men. What we asked for, our pain, our cry, an open wound that was simply poked with a stick today. They laughed at us. This deafness to our pain is truly terrible.
Which group is more numerous? The wives of those who have been mobilized, or the wives of those who may still be mobilized? Obviously the latter. And he answered them saying that a second wave of mobilization was not expected, because if he had told the mobilized women that there would be a rotation for them, he would have had to specify at what cost, and the second wave of mobilization would be a much greater shock for Russian society.
One of the few important questions raised was about the harsh punishment for journalist Alexandra Bayazitova, who was recently sentenced to 5 years in prison for extortion. The prosecutor had initially asked for 14 years.
Where is the line between when real criminals are punished and when a witch hunt begins? Don't go too far. What kind of witch hunt is that? What did she do to be hunted? Is she some kind of a major opposition figure or something? I'm sure no one is hunting her.
And here, it seems, Putin finally let it slip. Never before has a Russian president so openly stated that he considers the pursuit of opposition forces to be the norm.
Putin is full of himself. He inserts something of himself into all his prepared answers. And every time, one way or another, he lets it slip. And this time he spoke seriously. Putin sincerely views opposition politicians as legitimate targets for persecution. Here is a small insight into the worldview of Vladimir Putin.
The idyll of convenient and sometimes even flattering or amusing questions to Putin was shattered by appeals appearing on big screens from Russian citizens. We gave gas to China and Europe, but when will there be gas in Khakassia? How long will you manipulate the inflation rate? Why does your reality differ from our reality? Or, Mr. President, when will real Russia be no different to its television version? However, the Russian leader did not pay any attention to the text messages.
He died of homesickness syndrome. This is what the military told the parents of the 19-year-old Russian soldier enlisted just 4 months earlier. But doctors at the hospital noted numerous signs of beatings on the unconscious patient. According to his relatives, the young man was assaulted while being forced to sign a contract with the Russian Defense Ministry. It appears that he was forced to participate in the war against Ukraine.
A flag and a cap. This is all that the military handed over with the body of a 19-year-old Andrei Lazyev to his parents. He was drafted for military service, which is compulsory in Russia, at the end of June from the small Karelian town of Pitkyranta, located near the border with Finland. The young man reported that he and other recruits were brought to the territory of the annexed Crimea and placed near the front line with Ukraine in early September.
Without any explanation of the reason. They didn't know what, where, or anything. They came to an intermediate point or something. He said that they had been driven to a roadblock. They placed them in the trenches and told them not to stick their heads out.
During this conversation, his son Andrei had time to mention that the command daily persuades young recruits to sign a contract for military service on a professional basis. After that, the connection stopped. 3 weeks later, Andrei was able to report that he was in a field hospital, and then there was silence again. It was not until the middle of October when his parents received a text message from an unknown to them patient of a military hospital in the annexed Sebastopol.
He said, "I'm writing about your son because he says he doesn't remember where his phone is. He doesn't remember your phone numbers. He doesn't remember anything. He only remembers his surname and can say a few things. That's all. At the same time, he says he can't see well, he can't walk, and he can't eat anything at all."
Everyone in the military and in the hospital refused to talk to his parents. However, with the assistance of local deputies, they managed to obtain a brief telephone statement from a representative of the hospital, but only after facing significant challenges. The doctor said that Andrei's body showed signs of beatings, but that his physical health was unaffected.
They said, "Well, he probably doesn't want to serve. He has homesickness syndrome. He's being transferred to psychiatry. It's a closed ward. No one is allowed in."
Andrei Lazyev passed away in the intensive care unit on November the 2nd. The officially stated cause of death was a cerebral hemorrhage. A few days later, the deputy commander responsible for educational matters in the unit where the soldier served extended an invitation to Andrei's parents, urging them to travel to Sebastopol to purchase a coffin and arrange for the repatriation of their son's body. Nearly a month later, the Ministry of Defense did dispatch a military cargo plane to Karelia, only after the intervention of a respected organization of retired military personnel. Although representatives of the unit arrived, their visit was not to issue an apology.
They said, "What claims do you have against our unit? We have a guard unit, a good one. Everything is fine. Conscripts are not involved in anything." I asked, "How did he get to the hospital unconscious?" They said he didn't go to the hospital unconscious. We brought him in conscious. Something happened in the hospital that led to his death.
Andrei's parents had written numerous letters to various authorities and on numerous occasions had visited the military enlistment office and the military prosecutor's office. They had been consistently calling for an investigation into their son's death. However, in response, they faced threats of a potential criminal case.
For discrediting the army, as the authorities now fashionably like to call it, I believe that the most severe discredit to the army is the act of killing within its own ranks.
Andrei Lazhev's parents are determined to persist in their quest for a thorough investigation to uncover the circumstances surrounding their son's death. Their objective is to ensure mandatory accountability for those responsible.
The head of a district in Belarus has been detained for concealing the outbreak of an animal disease in agriculture. What's more, the value of the dead cows, amounting to tens of thousands of dollars, was deducted from the wages of collective farm workers. Ironically, the authorities who initiate criminal cases for mismanagement in agriculture are identified as the main contributors to such crimes.
In Belarus, agriculture still relies on large, state-owned collective farms called kolkhoz, a legacy of the USSR. Recently, some of these collective farms have fraudulently registered dead cows as meat, which they then sell to their workers, deducting the cost from their wages. In the Lelchitsa district, the cattle plague has affected almost 2,000 animals over 4 years. The employees suffered approximately $25,000 in damages. The former chairman of the district executive committee and his deputy will be tried for fraud.
Year by year, the number of cattle is decreasing. In 5 years, by more than 100,000 heads, including in 2022, by 22,000. The main reason is cattle plague.
Lukashenko's authorities admit that last year they opened 480 criminal cases for hiding cattle plague. In comparison, in 2020, there were 203 of them. This year, the cattle plague was recorded in 53 out of 118 districts, almost in every second one. Alexander Lukashenko sees the problem as being connected with discipline.
All controlling bodies have concluded that the reasons are mundane: a violation of maintenance technology, lack of management, and outright slovenliness.
But it seems that the collective farms which have to conceal the cattle plague are simply in dire financial condition and cannot provide the animals with appropriate conditions. And even the state media acknowledges it.
This has happened before, 20 years ago and 15 years ago, and it happened in the poorest districts, the poorest collective farms. In the Stauptsi district, where I worked, half of the collective farms are engaged in this. The farm simply doesn't have diesel fuel to clean the corral, which is why the cattle plague occurs. There is no money to buy veterinary drugs.
According to experts, managements of collective farms are concealing the cattle plague to avoid punishment for excessive animal mortality. Agricultural organizations must also comply with forecast indicators. Lukashenko believes that the dairy sector needs 16,000 animals.
Many farms raise livestock at a loss. Sometimes the space doesn't allow for keeping so many animals, but the plan is that it's necessary to increase the production of milk and meat. Therefore, the number is increasing beyond the norms.
What's more, there is a shortage of qualified personnel in Belarusian agriculture. Authorities are attempting to address systemic issues through command administrative methods, such as the compulsory assignment of young university graduates to collective farms. In addition, security force employees are also being sent there to restore order.
It's possible to describe the increased control by security forces in this area as a transfer of the problem from a sick head to a healthy one. It's just that the dictator has appointed another scapegoat who will be held accountable for the losses harshly and personally.
Management problems also stem from the fact that agriculture in Belarus is not overseen by owners but by directors appointed by the state.
These are people who don't manage their own money or their own livestock. They treat the farm accordingly. That's why there were 480 criminal cases last year, and nothing has changed.
The authorities still rely not on market approaches, but on security forces. Recently, General Prosecutor Andrei Shved has held a meeting to ensure legality in agriculture.
These are all our stories for you today. Thank you for watching Eastern Europe Review. Please continue to stay with TVP World.